Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation with one of our special guests, one of the speakers from the Women Thrive Summit, Paige Frisone. Hi, Paige. How are you today?
Hello, I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me here, Ramonda. I'm so excited to jump into some really good conversation.
Amazing. Where are you joining us from today?
I am here in Boulder, Colorado. We have sun, we have snow. It's just enchanted every day of the year.
Amazing. Well, today's conversation, we're talking about a holistic approach to sustainable healing using integrative methods. And if you're not sure what it is, that's okay. Stick around for today's conversation to find out what it actually means. And we are joined by our amazing guest, who's Paige Brisson. So, Paige has amazing experience in this field. So, her integrative practice in around wellness. She's a founder of it, where she aids clients around the globe in processing trauma and disease on a subconscious and therefore sustainable level. Her work is fueled by losing a decade of her life to anorexia, severe depression, anxiety, self harm, and various traumas, and ineffective prescription medicine. So, today we're talking about holistic approach to healing, whether it's physical healing, mental healing, emotional, and all round integrative healing. So if you're watching this right now, what I want you to do is go ahead and leave a comment in the chat. Let us know where in the world you're joining us from. We'd love to have you interacting in this conversation today. Make it really practical. We're here to answer any of your questions. We're going to be here for 20 minutes or so to answer your questions and also have this discussion. And if you know someone who should be watching this right now, make sure you share this live with them as well. So, Paige, tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you got to where you are today in doing this work.
Absolutely. So I love that bio. Thank you, Ramonda. It's really helpful for people to understand what actually drives the work that I do and the value that I feel this work brings to so many people. So I grew up with chronic night terrors for 7 years. So I was introduced into this planet with a lot of fear on a spiritual level. Why is there so much darkness around me? How can I, as a soul, actually be integrated in this world? And I was bullied at school. This all of this unsafety really manifested in my teens, where I started being diagnosed with certain things: depression, anxiety. I developed an eating disorder, as mentioned, and I was just taken into this cocktail of treatment centers, not able to hold down a job, not able to be in a relationship, not able to really finish school. And in my survival years, I really struggled to just be part of this world in an existential way. Like, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? How can I help? And because I was struggling so much, I never found that I was able to be of service to people like I can be now, because I wasn't well enough to do it. So I was constantly chasing my tail. So as I was in semester, out of semester, in all these different schools, all these different years going by, I really was always drawn to the therapy world, because that was something that really helped me in my life in different ways. At the same time, having been in a bunch of treatment centers, I realized there's a huge gap in the market as far as helping people understand the dominant part of the brain, which is the subconscious mind. It's 95% of our existence. So when you hear certain techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, there's all these modes out there of healing, and that's fantastic. They all have a time and place. I'm never anti anything. However, those methods more often than not only address the 5% of the brain. So what are we doing about the rest of it? So I had to really struggle in that Western system for a long time. Then I toggled all the way to Eastern, and I studied academically botanical medicine, vibrational medicine, energy, different modalities in that world. And I really came back to toggle into the center of integration, because we need the Western world for the reasons that we need it. We need the Eastern world for the reasons that we need it. But I really love bringing science into the body and science into this otherwise nebulous concept of metaphysics. And so that's really what landed me back into center after toggling both sides of the spectrum.
Wow. It's so incredible to hear that actually a lot of it is our subconscious, which I wasn't even aware that subconscious is such a big part, such a big player in, especially in our health. As much as our bodies are so, I don't know, powerful in self-healing. So where the health practices that you practice, where do they fit in and who is it helpful for?
Absolutely. So the reason why I love this integrative work that I practice is because it combines Eastern and Western together. And in doing so, we actually use 14 different modalities as part of this 16-step system. So we do 16 steps every single session that I see people, and it's super elaborate. It's the most comprehensive and effective process that I have found in all the different modes of healing that I've tried. So I really serve people who struggle with mental health, chronic symptomatology, as well as various addictions of all kinds. And I love helping people understand that the mind is designed to be addictive in nature. So you don't necessarily have to have a diagnosed substance abuse disorder or impulse control disorder or eating disorder or whatever it is to have addictive tendencies as it pertains to your relationships and the thoughts that you think and these programs of behavior that maybe keep getting triggered over and over again. So I really love serving people who maybe are in therapy and need something a little bit more, or maybe they're not in therapy because it hasn't worked for them and they're really wanting a different approach.
Wow. It's, sometimes it's worth exploring because sometimes what we've been given by necessarily medical field keeps us stuck in this loop of going over through the same medicine or through the same diagnosis, but actually not finding the healing. So, what would you suggest to someone who is stuck and perhaps is really struggling and trying to find more holistic approach to their health?
Absolutely. So I find a lot of people are grasping for like, I need something and I don't know what that is. And when you're in an extremely vulnerable place as a client or a prospective client, it can feel like musical chairs as far as like speed dating therapists or speed dating people that you're really wanting to interview to find out if they're even suitable for you. And when we're in that vulnerable, critical place, it can be the hardest way to really like show up for yourself because we need help like yesterday, right? So there's a sense of urgency when it comes to really being able to care for yourself. And I want to help make that process easier for people. So instead of going to see an EMDR person and a therapist and a nutritionist and a doctor and an acupuncturist, you're welcome to do that. I think that's fantastic. But I really do find that this system, because it's so integrative in nature, is a beautiful place to start for us to assess where you are, where you'd like to be. We'll journey together in our first session, and you can really see experientially what that feels like for you. And then we have more clarity right off the bat of what the next best steps will be if you want to call in some other people as well to be part of your support team, or if you really just are able to stay the course with me for a while and go from there. I always like to tell people, once you're in that self-discerning place, once we can start processing some of the things that are really in the way right now and keeping you stuck, I always give the power back to the client and say, you will know, your authority will know within you when you're feeling stable enough, when you're sustaining your vibration enough to start making the next best steps in your life.
What are the practical, simple things you could suggest to someone to even start integrating on a daily basis to more, I don't know, sustainable and holistic approach to their health?
Yeah. So for me, I always talk about the senses because the senses, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, and sense of touch are how we experience life. So if we're really struggling in our life, all of those sensory experiences are top priority for me to really keep in balance. So if that means keeping certain crystal allies on you just to make sure you have something to ground your physical self, I always recommend that. And you can use your intuition about which crystal allies might be best. You can always ask a crystal or an herb or a tincture, whatever it is that you might be using to help you with whatever the struggle is that you're going through. Botanically, there's so many plant medicines out there and flower essences that we can use to support us. So if you have an apothecary in your town, highly recommend going, not just because they're fantastic resources, but you will literally walk away different just by being in the vibration of all of these different alternative systems. So crystal allies are amazing. Aromatherapy, if you have essential oils, I really recommend. There's different oils for different parts of the body, of course, but frankincense, eucalyptus, lavender, and mint can be really great just for grounding your sense immediately back into the body. As far as hearing, right, I really love ambient music. That's something that keeps me calm, classical music as well, something that isn't necessarily lyrically saying negative and sad things, because that subconsciously does impact us as well. So you can also transition that into meditations that are guided so that you're not having to do all the work. as well as affirmations that maybe are coming through like a gratitude meditation. So that can be really great for the ears. And then for the eyes, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you ingesting? Right? This is really important. I always love to recommend the Heal documentary on Netflix. There's also a film called E-Motion. These types of resources, and You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. These things will start prepping your internal environment so that you know for yourself that you're designed to heal. And then when you're surrounding yourself by these other allies that know that and can hold that for you and can prove it to you, all of a sudden the vibration of your inner system starts raising to acclimate to that truth. So that feels really important for the eyes. What are you ingesting? And then for taste, right? Like we think about food and people give themselves such a hard time with food and we get really lost in our head about it. So I really encourage just eating with intention. I always say it's more about how you eat than what you eat. And so even if you're just taking 5 minutes a day to be present with each of your meals, thank the food for existing, thank yourself for giving yourself food, and really ask it to ground you in a physical way. So just being able to be with the senses feels like a beautiful foundation for people to start interacting with themselves a little bit deeper.
Sorry. I love that. It's so being much more present with your senses. The five senses we have, they are here for a very, for a reason. And they can recognize what it is that you need. And I love tapping into that inner wisdom. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the beliefs of people. Like, this is a good medicine, or this is a good approach to healing, and this might not be good. So these beliefs that perhaps we've been brought up with, or that's the outer world has taught us, and actually the inner knowings, and what is the knowing and believing into different things, and how can we shift our mindset to more holistic approach in health?
Yeah, I love this question. So beliefs are so loaded. Abraham Hicks would say, right, like beliefs are thoughts that we keep thinking. And so beliefs are conditioned. And beliefs can be positive if we really believe that we are cool, right? Like, let's just say I believe I'm cool, right? If you really believe something positive about yourself, that's incredible and that's weighted. But it's equally weighted to the negative beliefs that are subliminally streaming all the time. So the beliefs of I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable, right? I'm not good enough, I can't afford it, whatever it is that's going on under the surface is going to make that anchor equally heavy, if not heavier, to the positive beliefs. So we want to start actually transitioning the beliefs into knowings so that there is no wavering from one belief to another belief to another belief. Beliefs are programmed through our perception, through those lenses, through those senses we were just talking about. So if you constantly are seeing unsafety, you're going to believe that you're unsafe, right? If you're constantly thinking thoughts of, I'm never going to make it in this life, then like, of course, that's going to create a certain filter that we're experiencing our life through, a certain reality. And it's nobody's fault because nobody would choose to live that way. But when we can rewire perception, and that's a loaded conversation, but it's based on epigenetics, it's based on understanding that we can change our genomic expression. When we shift our internal wiring, our internal environment, we start actually creating a different external environment. And in the world of, the new age kind of metaphysical world, people call this manifestation. Manifestation is a beautiful concept. Law of attraction is a beautiful concept. And at the same time, I really love bringing like the science and neurology into it so people can practically understand what we're doing here. So when you can trigger the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and sense of touch in a reactive way, we're doing that intentionally because we want to mirror the times in our life every few seconds that we're getting triggered in that way. And so once we can trigger them and then harmonize those triggers, the body starts coming back to a different frequency, a different base, where we can start perceiving differently. And when we start perceiving differently, then we start creating this knowing within us that, okay, I have this belief that I'm not good enough, but I actually know that I am. I actually know that I am. And so now I can separate the thought that I'm having, that same old program that's running tapes, with the knowing in my center that I'm okay. I know I'm okay, and I'm consciously choosing to be okay. And it's more accessible for me to feel okay because the gap between that belief of I'm not okay and the knowing of I am okay are starting to get smaller and smaller, if that makes sense.
Wow, love that. Thank you so much for sharing that and just so much wisdom. I feel like there's so much to learn and tap into. So, for someone who might be, and for those of you watching this live or on replay, please let us know if you have any questions for our speaker Paige today. Let us know if there's, you might be on your own healing journey. There might be a particular area that you're currently struggling with, whether it's mental or mindset or even health, actual practical health. So, if someone is feeling that defeat and hopelessness, they've been around the block, they tried different things, tried to find the solutions to their better health, but perhaps they always just hitting brick wall. And whether they struggling with something very specific or they just have not found the solutions that they're looking for, what advice would you give them right now?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I always feel the desire to validate, like, oh my gosh, yes, this healing journey can feel so relentless. We're here as humans with spiritual experiences, we're spirits with human experiences, and there's so much going on all the time. So it makes sense to feel defeated and hopeless and discouraged, because when we're consciously trying so hard to make it better, we can actually create more resistance on a subconscious level that makes it hard to bridge again that gap between conscious and subconscious. We have these different brains, we have these different parts of the brain that are always seeking equilibrium and alignment. So if you're constantly getting triggered, sometimes we get triggered and we know what the trigger is, and sometimes more often we get triggered without even knowing what it is, which can create this dysregulation internally of like, oh my gosh, I'm here again. I'm still attracting this person in relationship. I'm still not able to manifest the money in the bank account. Like whatever it is, we start again getting instantly triggered into those perceptions. I really want people to understand that we have millions of memories that have not been fully processed that are all stored for survival in the subconscious. And so in our journey together in our session, we will literally like locate the memory that's responsible for manifested present day stress. And when we can unlock that memory and let that emotional charge discharge essentially or deactivate, then the body starts coming back to base. And so for those who think they've tried everything, I would just very gently say, like, there's more. I promise you, there are infinite ways to heal. It's just a matter of really lining up with the thing that makes the most sense for you in the moment that you're in your life. And so that's what fuels my passion, is to help people understand that the work that I do is really unique and different. It's extremely comprehensive. And I really want to give people the experience to know that there's more out there. There really is.
If you don't mind, and if that's possible, would you share just a small story of someone you practically helped and they had a huge transformational result in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sometimes, and this is more of a general story and then I can get specific, but I have people that will be so committed to the healing process. They will come in and then all of a sudden after, I'll say like, give me 6 months, like give or take 6 months, depending on the complexity of what you're experiencing. But we'll start with 5 sessions once a week for 5 weeks and we'll reassess. After session 1, I see people go from 0 to 100. I'm not joking. It's insane when like we can shift our vibration, when we can unlock even one memory, we can feel the difference between, oh, I've been in the dark and I'm comfortable in the dark as much as I hate it. And now I'm ready for the light. Like I'm ready to transition into the bigness, into the power of what can be. And people will receive a glimpse within one session of what that can really look like. So that's always really exciting to see. As far as the actual story that I've seen the most transformation, I was seeing this client for about a year, and it was some of the most trauma I'd ever seen. It was multi-layered. They had a traumatic brain injury. They had absolute unsafety in the home, a lot of like divorced parents type of energy going on, and not able to really feel safe with the dynamic. And so it created kind of a threshold in our healing together with this client, because they were only able to feel so safe every time they walked out of our session, right? When you're in an environment that's inhibiting you, you can shift your internal environment as much as you want. And you have to understand that you're going to get triggered probably more frequently than the next person who has a really safe environment. So we've been going at it for about a year, and then they decided to take a break, which is great. I love when my clients have that agency to know what's best for them. By the time they came back to the practice, which was probably 4 months ago, they said to me, I am a completely different person, and I can't even explain what's happened since the last time I've seen you, but I know what we did and are doing together helped me. I don't know why I stopped, and I need to come back. And so what was so wild about this reunion with this client is that the last time I had seen them last year, they were a lot more feminine presenting. They were very like dysmorphic in their system, not really sure about how to integrate all of their parts. And then recently when we reconnected, complete 180. Energy had shifted, more masculine presenting, more in their body, more able to be aligned with their energy, and more able to vocalize boundaries, speak their truth, and be willing to continue to show up. And so I had seen this client last year in what I call like a Grim Reaper moment. No joke, I've never experienced such dark energy. And it wasn't necessarily their energy, it was the energy they were attracting. And I saw it in session, and I was in a moment as a practitioner where I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, I don't even know where to go from here because I've experienced this level of density, but being able to facilitate that in session for somebody else is really delicate. So having gone from that Grim Reaper phase to like, okay, I know who I am, was probably the most astounding shift I've ever seen.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I love that. For those of you watching live on this session right now, please let us know if you have any questions. Maybe there's something you're curious about, but you haven't really stepped forward to ask it. Right now would be the best time to do that. And what a transformation, from someone who's been through so much. And this is what I find about healing sometimes. Whilst we're in it, we don't feel it's happening until we go out into the world and start to integrate what we learned, and we allow, and even taking that break, allow for those things that you worked on to start taking effect, because it needs to kind of start to take the effect. And I love that story that, it's just a whole transformation happened whilst the client been away, and they're like, oh my God, I realized what this is.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the more mystical components of subconscious work, because we're journeying into a part of the brain that has its own vocabulary, its own roadmap. We don't want to treat it just as we would the conscious mind, because it's completely different. And it's kind of like communicating with it on its own terms. And for that reason, we work really hard to bring the invisible to the visible realm so folks can really understand what is responsible for these programs of their life that they'd like to shift. But because it's subconscious, it can be tricky for some people. Some people will feel it right away without words, right? But for some people to really be like, is there a shift happening? Absolutely, yes. It's just a matter of starting to train the conscious mind to see all the ways that the subconscious is shifting. So it's always happening whether we know it or not, but it feels very important to help people start tracking how they can prove evidentially that they are making shifts. Because once you start practicing like, oh, I didn't have that thought today, or oh, my stomach doesn't hurt today, or oh, like I feel good today, like whatever conscious awareness we have about the things that are moving in motion, the more likely we are to start having those experiences.
So I feel like subconscious is so powerful, sometimes in self-sabotaging, sometimes doing the things that are counter productive to us or goes against our health, because either that's part of our belief systems, or that's why because we've been doing this the whole of our lives, or whatever conditioning you've been through, or even if it's protection mechanism that should no longer be there, but it's there. And as you say, it's so hard to recognize what are those subconscious patterns. And we talked about this driving 95% of you, which is massive. So last question, how can we become more aware of our subconscious and start to recognize that perhaps we need to address some things and make a change?
Yeah. So I love to say anything and everything we're experiencing that we'd never choose to experience is coming from the subconscious. So first and foremost would be becoming more aware of the things you're not choosing versus the things you're choosing. So it's really practical to even make a list of like, what are all the things I'm really choosing that are going great for me in my life? And what are all the things that I'm not choosing that I feel like are controlling me? So the second you can make that distinction of what's conscious versus what's subconscious, then we can be more in our authority about making choices. We can start tracking like, oh, there's that belief again. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Let me pause here. The second you identify that belief, you can tap into your heart and let your heart actually gear you. Let your heart lead the way of what does it decide to feel, because the heart is electromagnetically so much more powerful than the mind. Once the heart starts shifting the frequency on a biochemical level, the mind can start adjusting and acclimating to that frequency. The other method that I really like encouraging people to go into is a little bit of self-inquiry. So the second you identify that feeling or that thought that's really old and familiar, journey inward of like, what does this remind me of? What does this remind me of? Maybe you're going to get images of an age. Maybe you'll get images of a specific environment. Again, there are times, the more you practice this, where you're going to know exactly what part of you that needs help and dialoguing and honoring and validation. And once you get that age or that environment, or even if it's an age range of like 8 to 10 or 10 to 12, you can let that part of you start dialoguing with you just by asking gentle questions like, hey, I see you're really activated. Like, what do you need in this moment? How can I support you? What's the environment that would be safest for you right now? And letting that part answer those questions, which are all intuitive, is really the most healing way that I've found that people can kind of shortcut this process and upgrade that memory right away.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing so much goodness, so much practical tips, and some things that people can already start working on, and just or bare minimum just to become aware of. As you say, just start journaling, become more aware and connect with yourself on a deeper level. So, Paige, you are one of our speakers at the Women Thrive Summit, which is our global women empowerment event that happens every March. Tell us a little bit more about the talk that you have coming up during this event.
Of course. So my talk is called Heal Subconscious Programs to Master Your Conscious Life. So again, we're going to drop in even deeper to the dichotomy between these two parts of the brain, where we've given all of our emphasis in society, which is, of course, the conscious part, and then what the subconscious really means, what it looks like, how to dialogue with it. We mentioned today it has its own rules and regs for us. And so I'll jump in as well to a little bit more of my story and the particulars of what has driven this practice for me, as well as more tips for people, more tools to walk away with that will help empower you to dialogue with yourself a little bit kinder, right? And work with the world in a more gentle way and start cooperating and participating in your life with more agency.
Wow. So if you haven't already, and if you feel curious about this, you want to get your hands on more tools and resources on how to heal your subconscious life, go ahead to womenthrivesummit.com and register for your free spot. You can get a free ticket, or you can upgrade yourself for additional resources and access to various experiences within the summit. This is a 1 week long event where we have 47 plus speakers speaking at this amazing 1 week event where you can connect with amazing women from all around the world, learn things on healing, energy, spirituality. So that's more on the sort of energetics, but also on confidence, growing your leadership, growing your business, visibility, marketing, mindset, as well as finances. So all the practical things that you also need in business. But what I do find that entrepreneurship and being a business owner really comes with this thing that no one really tells you, that is so connected to your personal growth, personal development, and actually your personal healing. And that's one of the reasons, as you talk about kind of holistic approach to healing, we talk about holistic approach to business. And for me, I feel like that comes hand in hand. You know, your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, your healing, your confidence, your mindset, and the success in your business. So go over to womenthrivesummit.com, register for your spot there, and we look forward to seeing you there. Paige, today has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom.
Oh, thank you too. It's been absolutely a joy. Time always flies when we're together. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to, hope you're looking forward to meeting Paige at the summit as well. We have other amazing interviews on our page, so do make sure you check out and meet other amazing speakers for the Women Thrive Summit. So my name is Raimonda. I am the founder of Women Thrive Summit, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, Paige. Look forward to seeing you on the summit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Before we go, I nearly forgot. I was like, something is missing. How do people get in touch with you?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. So My website is a great way to get a bigger overview of everything we've talked about today. So that's just innerrealmwellness.life, innerrealmwellness.life. And then I'm very active on social media. I have tons of free content and free resources there. So on Instagram, it's at Inner Realm Wellness. Facebook is at Inner Realm Wellness, and TikTok is at Inner Realm Wellness. So I have consistent across the board names and handles for you to easily find me, and I will see you there.
Amazing. So do make sure you connect with Paige, let her know you watched this interview with her, and reach out if there is something you're struggling in your life right now, if you're looking for that journey to more sustainable and holistic approach to health, whether it's the physical, mental health, or spiritual. Paige has an amazing array of tools to support you with. Thank you all so much for watching. If you feel like this could be a practical conversation for someone to hear, do make sure you share it. And for now, we look forward to seeing you on another live. Thanks, Paige.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now.